Hello and welcome to This and That. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer, and I can't pull off a tank top,
Well,
Dave. So
I
I'm
love
glad
your
you're
shirt,
wearing one.
Jonathan.
Well, thank you. Okay.
Well,
I'm very impressed.
You're looking very handsome today, Jonathan.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So this is the skating lesson. We are going to discuss everything going on in the skating world this week. So if you're new, please subscribe below. Smash that like button. Jonathan, it's been just like a hard week for everyone. So I don't...
Yeah, in many ways. Jeesh.
I don't think we have like a lot of skating things to discuss, but maybe we can bring some positive vibes and levity to the masses. Yeah.
Exactly. Someone looking for a
let's
brief
discuss your
moment
hair.
of
What's going on? What's going on?
Oh, I just got out of the shower. Is it
looks
doing a funny
great.
thing? Oh, thanks. Sometimes when it's wet, it just
it
like
looked better
behaves.
before, so if you could just like pat it down a little bit.
Oh,
yeah.
oh. You like the control, Dave.
It
You
was
like it in
looking-
place.
It looked like it was school picture day, and it was just,
The South Park episode where they take school pictures is definitely one for the books. I'm just going to
Okay.
say that.
All
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
So what have you
Yeah.
been doing this week? What's happening?
Oh, this, that, and the other. I keep practicing for what? I don't know.
Is that
But
your
I'm just
father
keeping up
behind
with
you, what's happening here? This vase, this urn, like what is
Oh,
happening?
these vases? Oh my God.
Like, what?
I was looking for a photo. I was like, what? No, nothing in here. Just a couple of Art Deco accessories. But he lives among all of us, isn't he? And it's a bit of the zebra. I just thought I'd switch it up. I had to start doing faculty Zoom meetings for some of the places I'm teaching at over the summer.
Oh.
And I know I'm like late to the party. I've only done like social things now via Zoom and stuff like that. But those things suck. They're the worst because also socially, like, who's just sitting there talking and everyone listens in a socializing situation? It seems really weird. So I keep trying to switch up my background so I look more interesting.
We had a family Zoom last night with extended
Oh, how
relatives.
was that?
It's interesting because, we come from a line of Polish alcoholics,
Okay.
I would just say that there was maybe one relative who was drinking excessively on there who dominated the Zoom. And it was
Oh, okay. I didn't
fascinating.
know if you were going to just like see him like slip off the screen or something. Okay.
No.
Okay.
And, and before, it was kind of that thing where we're like, not everyone in here like agrees politically. So maybe let's avoid that.
Yeah, especially right now. Everyone
Yeah.
is triggered. Everything is very edgy. Yeah.
This family member, that memo went right out the door.
Right in the deep end.
Yes.
Okay. Jumping right in. How many of there were you?
So there were 12 computers of and some people had
That's a lot.
so yeah, it was maybe 20 people. So yeah, a lot of personality on one screen.
Yeah, and again, it feels weird when everyone just has to be quiet and listen to one person sort of pontificate. It creates like a weird social energy, I find.
I mean, it's nice. It's better than
Nothing, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
But I'm used to working out over Zoom. I mean, Zoom, it's like the new frontier. How's their stock doing? We should have bought stock in it a long time ago, right?
Yeah, a couple of companies, right, are really standing to benefit from all this. Okay, so I want to talk this out about your exercise classes this week.
Okay.
Tell me who you took, and then I have very specific questions. Okay.
So we talked. I took Aliona last week. She did it for Igor, right? So because Aliona and Tatiana Voloshajar were compared for their entire careers.
Of course, yeah.
So Igor thought it would be cute to invite Tatiana this week.
After Aliona.
Yeah.
Second to
Which
Aliona's
is
invitation.
so funny because I also get invited to Aliona runs a class, right? So she goes, "Oh, you do my class Saturday?" And I was like, "I can't. I have to do Tatiana." I was like, maybe Igor wanted us to rest, Aliona. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So she's like, "Oh, funny,"
Yeah.
And I actually did. So I did Tatiana's class. I did Aliona's class on Thursday because I'm going for physical therapy because I've had some shoulder stuff. And since which I went to the chiropractor for, and I know people are always like, go to physical therapy, don't go to the chiropractor. And so before I was doing the chiropractor, now I'm trying physical therapy because the chiropractor would help it, but it didn't cure it. right? So I'm trying
of course, yeah. You'll revert, I would think. Yeah.
And like, he helped my ankle, I think, more than he helped my shoulders and neck stuff, which a lot of it is like postural from being on the computer. So I'm trying to fix that. So I did, knowing that I was going to have my intro physical therapy appointment at the same time that Igor usually does his conditioning class, I did Aliona's earlier in the day. And once again, Jonathan, she starts at like a 7. Okay.
Yeah, and ends at a 50. It's a scale only out of 5. Yeah.
God love her. She had some fabulous like zebra print like tank top on, right? She's at that red wall you love, right?
Right.
I was like trying to look in her apartment when we weren't dying. Like the husband was taking care of he looks really
Yeah, how
cute
could
and
you see
nice.
through the sweat? Like you can't even see your screen.
And like she could really see me this time. So she was like, Dave, back up, back leg, you know?
Okay, amazing.
Okay, I'll go now.
She was correcting you like you were Tatiana. Okay.
It was what I wanted, right?
Yeah.
But, okay, so she starts with like, you know, like heel, toe, right? It's like very like stylized. Like Aliona has a certain way of stepping that I really appreciate. And
It's from dressage. Yeah, okay.
automatically she goes 15 like heel raises, which are like calf raises. And she has this way, because her accent is like not quite Ukrainian, not quite German, not quite Russian, where you're like, did she say 15 or 50, right? Because like 15 sounds like a normal number, right?
A proper warm-up, yeah.
Of course, she meant 50, right?
Yeah.
And like, at a certain point, you're like, oh. Like,
she wanted the number on your shirt, but she just settled with 15, or 50, rather. Okay.
I don't even know what this number is. It's just like I bought
4,505. That's how many reps she wants.
I don't know why ASOS does it. I just liked their workout clothes. It was pretty inexpensive and they fit. So, okay. So ASOS, the US website, I get some clothes on. So anyway, we're doing like, and midway through you're like, oh dear, this is like a little much. Right?
Yeah, okay.
And of course, and then you finish and she goes, okay, and now with arms. And you're like, God, Elio.
Yeah, that's insane. And does she do all of it with you?
Oh, yeah. God.
Because, you know, again, we've talked about this with Priscilla. Like, my favorite aerobic activity was always step aerobics. But oftentimes you would get maybe an instructor whose body confused you. Because you were like, how are you a fitness instructor? It doesn't seem like you're in great shape, maybe. But then you realize oftentimes they would just stand on the step cheerleading and like giving you the thing, not actually doing it with you. But of course, Aliona's like keeping up the entire time.
I have an aside about this. Because you know, yoga people are like a separate version of pretentious. And there are different breeds of yoga people, right? Like not all yogis are the same. But then there are like the body positivity yogis, right? And like if I want to work out, I want to work out for all the benefits. The mental benefits, the body benefits. But, you know, some yoga people believe, Jonathan, that you're working out for the spiritual and emotional benefits and mental. You shouldn't be worrying about the body. The body will follow. But you're like, but aren't we working out? Right?
Well, I suppose, okay, so here's the thing. Someone like you who is very athletic, right?
Yeah.
You're going to respond to that body part. The only thing I see with yoga, because sometimes, again, I see people that are always seemingly working out at yoga, and it seems like maybe I don't understand the results that they're experiencing. But maybe if it's like competition when the skaters say they're going to skate their best and not skate to win. I feel like they want to win, but maybe if that's the focus, they get too tripped up and won't do it or something. Is that what it is?
But when the yoga instructor is like 50 to 100 pounds overweight, like, do you feel strange about that? It's hard to not have your...
Is it more meditative than maybe exercise? Which is also important, that meditative thing.
But we have to hit all bases, right?
Exactly. With all our non-time, yeah.
Yes. So it's like, okay. You know, I just always wonder about that. And you try to, like, you know, free your mind of judgment and just, you know, it's very...
For instance, does Aliona have, like, a big meditative component where you lay there and take in your thoughts? And
we take in none of our thoughts during Aliona.
Exactly.
You know, and she doesn't even have a big stretching section. Somehow it just ends, and we all just feel gasping for breath. But the funniest part was that they wound up moving up my physical therapy. or an hour earlier. And I love when places do this, when you're like, I'm like ending a work call, like while I'm in the waiting room, like, you know, trying to, you know, bridge the end of the day in my appointment. And I get back in time for the workout. And it was just like my body after Aliona. My mom's like, don't you want to work out with Igor? You're abandoning him. And I'm like, no.
Wow, look at that verbiage, Debbie. Interesting.
No. And Igor's like, yeah, I don't know, Dave doesn't take my class anymore. He took Aliona's today. And I was like, Jonathan, he was doing a pistol squat, just like a shoot the duck, rising into it, doing it into a dive plank push-up.
The video I saw was inhuman.
I just looked at it, and I was like, thank God I picked a day to skip. Like, of all, God is watching us from a distance, okay?
Yes, thank you, Beth. Yeah.
Thank God.
Okay.
So there's that. My ballet class, I had 3 lessons with Victor this week. 2 were very good. 1 was very bad. So,
and what means bad for you?
Well, so I've been working on my axle and like my different jumps, and I've really been like improving the axle. So, and I've been trying to do it so that I'll often so I had to work through like a mental block because I used to do the axle on the ice, and I had like a slight 2-foot, like the Oksana Bayolat's 2-foot, right? Going on, and I tried myself to land it on 1 foot because I didn't want to get in the habit of landing it on 2 feet. And I started falling the wrong way and got a hematoma on my side, and then I would never allow myself to go for it. Like my mind would stop. So I've been doing well, but I noticed that I'm starting to really get the technique that he wants, but I noticed that I always miss the first one a little bit. So,
well, wouldn't that make sense in a warm-up?
It would. Like we do a whole like series of exercises, but like I'll do the second one or the third one, and I was kind of feeling like yesterday I was like, I would really enjoy if I could just do the first one right, because we went through we do axle approach with a jump, axle approach with a jump half twist, axle approach with a jump full twist, and then go for the axle. And somehow my mind still either goes like, this is going to be different, and like I change something, or like I blank instead of just like doing it. So it's like I'm trying to like work through that mental part where your body like tries to like do something different. So I took melatonin yesterday because I had to get up to do a bunch of stuff, and I usually take a certain amount, and I realized the night before that I took double what I usually take.
Yeah, just so now for you, because melatonin was the kind of thing, like if I'm going overseas and need to switch the time change quickly, like I used to try to take melatonin. I used to get a little bitchy. Like it would affect my mood a little bit. Or maybe that was just where I was in my life. But also it would put me to sleep, but it wouldn't keep me asleep, I found.
Well, I think double the dose, the amount that I took, was a little excessive.
Okay.
And maybe I should reduce the original dose. Anyway, and I just felt like yesterday, like I was a little cloudy. Like my mind wasn't receiving new information very well.
Yeah.
And like I just could not get my like arm and leg and head to like all be together. Like it was really like I couldn't see the technique in my mind. It was like, you've been building, you think of these concrete steps of when you have to do something with your body. And it's the same thing like in music where you like visualize the different things or know what you have to do. Could do none of it on the axle.
Especially in that haze, because you're literally in a haze sometimes. I've experienced it from like Advil PM or some of those kinds of things, that you're in a fog. So I would think your firing muscle and your ability to be sharp, I mean, there's not enough coffee in the world to kind of...
Very dull. Very dull. So, but otherwise...
And that makes for a long hour.
It was a tiring hour. But the other things went well because... So he's a really great coach. I think like he's a hidden gem. So...
well, I have to say, sometimes when we've seen clips of seminars or heard people give, different... ideas about technique, sometimes you see them talking in cliches only, or these like weird trite things. But in what you've shown us from the Victor things, it seems like such concrete, real information. It seems like such a solid technical approach to everything.
Yeah, he has like a real standard technique that he likes for everything. It's sort of similar to Frank's, but a little different, right? And he is like very clear. Like he definitely jumps from the legs with the arms. You jump and rotate on the, and it's a little bit different than Terry's technique, where he was saying, about, really using the legs. And he's more traditional in that way, rather than just the spin, which is how the people have, jumps that last beyond the age of 16, 17. So, and it's just like a different theory about jumping.
Okay, so for instance, if you were going to compete and Victor was putting you on the ice, we see all those Atiri girls practice the snap, snap, snap as they like kind of get ready. What would Victor be doing maybe in those moments?
So we do talk about how like your head should be looking. So he likes to have the arm across, like on the lutz, or like not just in front, but like in front and across. And he likes to have your head be above your elbow, and then you go down and up, like, and you like you're swiping. Like he likes to say as if you're like doing pledge on a table, like you're going like that,
a wooden table. Yeah,
like as if you're like going up like that, rather than just this. So you want to go
because the other thing just appears twitchier.
Yes,
and so this seems like he's going for a bigger, smoother.
Which is why when they go through puberty, it's a bigger shift and why people can lose the jump, right? Because you're using your leg more. It's just a different theory of jumping. So, and you might not get like the quick quad. Like maybe it would take longer to get the quad, but maybe you would have it longer, like a tuktamisheva as a, like it's just like a different thing. So interesting. Like we do the drills for doubles and stuff, and like the first lesson, he was like, because I'd taken a group class and then I asked for private lessons, and the first time he had me do like the doubles on my own, like I was like falling into like furniture and
I mean, especially in like a makeshift basement off ice arena,
So yesterday we hadn't done it in a while, but he had me doing, he always like switches it, but it's like based on the same stuff, but we were doing like 1.5, which I never practiced 1.5 jumps and like never even did as a kid. So like to find out where you are in the air and to open up, like that was a little strange. But yesterday it like went well. Like we did singles, like he had me do 5 in a row, and then he had me do like the doubles, and the doubles were getting better. So I thought like, oh, it's going to be a good day.
It was not. It was all lies.
It's all lies. So.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Like, as a teacher, I think you would be a really exciting kind of student to have, because it would be someone who's so engaged and has so many questions and is so like on it. You know what I mean? I think it's got to be. I bet as they coach some of these younger kids, I would imagine each athlete has such a different energy in that kind of lesson. Yeah. Whose energies do you think you're similar to?
Oh, I don't know. That's so hard. Like, I think like he is interesting. So he's definitely the type where the more intense you are, the more intense he will get about it. And it kind of like builds. And he's like very picky. So that then you try to match that energy, and then they take it a step higher. So, and that's good. That's
for instance, like Frank, if he was giving you that kind of lesson, I can't imagine him as at you.
No, and I respond well to the at you. I do.
Yeah, exactly.
Igor's good too. Like Igor, when you work on edges and stuff with him, like I usually work with him in a class, and then when Kristen's not there, and he can like, I find that like Igor can teach me how to do something new, and then Kristen can perfect it. If that's like, like Igor's good to get you to try something new with like out having your brain go into the judgment. So he'll like put steps together that you wouldn't have thought that you'd be able to do. Like, let's do a Choctaw and do like something else. And then like Kristen will perfect it, and like she'll get like really like close to you and like perfect what your arm is doing and what this. So like she's really good in that way. Then. So yeah. But and my old coach was intense too, and I was intense and she was intense. So I guess it was like somewhat similar to Victor in that way. Like she was, but different. Like she was like really about like posture and all sorts of like things like that. So I was watching her former skater at the Europeans, and it was like, I had seen the girl in the rink before. I was like, oh, I see that. Like
I know this approach. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But we did Tatiana Voloshar's class yesterday, and I want to show you some of the fun things that Tatiana had us do. So she has a different energy than Aliona.
How so? I mean, no one could match that intensity level, so I'm imagining that off the get-go.
She's like a focused person, and she has like a sweet energy to her, but like a focused thing. And she had us doing, like, they felt like very traditional. And again, the Russians love this coordination talk, right? So she had us doing something that, remember when I talked about how it was like this? Right. So she goes, okay, put one thumb on your nose and one thumb on your ear. Okay, do this job.
Am I doing this with you? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, now you're going to reverse it and go like this. And go like back mirror. And forth and back and forth and back. And
I can't even begin it. I'm like, so I guess I'm going like that? No, that's just moving it over.
Yeah, but then you have to move like that.
Like that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like grabbing my own cheeks. Like,
I was missing my face when I did it for the first time. And now
I'm like, wait, what?
Now I practice it all the time. I find myself around the house being like, this is super fun. And like, it's just to warm up the brain before you exercise. And it was just kind of like fun. In yoga, they have you do similar type things where you do like one nostril breathing, you pause at the top and then exhale out of the other nostril. So like it's all that same theory of like mindfulness, waking up your brain, coordination type stuff. So
well, I started doing like, it's not luminosity, but it's those kinds of like brain exercises to like keep your mind like sharp and all this sort of stuff. And so it's like seeing like patterns of numbers and letters, and you have to determine but that kind of stuff really trips me up at first because I want to like ease into it and not feel rushed. But of course, everything's timed and you have to go as fast as possible. And I just shut down. So great. Yeah.
She also had us do like where you clasp your hands and bring them through. And like she can go straight full out on both sides, which I can only do it on the one. I can, like this is as far as it goes for me on the second side.
Oh, interesting.
Tatiana's like inverting and doing all
Does she have a slight hyperextension also maybe?
I don't know. I think she's just perfection. Okay. You know, like So yeah, that was
I think one of the most like magical performances I've seen, not but one of the most magical performances I saw live was their short program in 2013 at Skate America. The total perfection top to bottom of that entire program. I was like, I'm almost nervous to breathe because it was so flawless. Every arm, every placement, every
Skate America. Let's revisit. This is 2013. That's Marilyn, Charlie, Scheherazade.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the
Ashley and Mao were the main attraction in the ladies' event.
Ashley was doing the VH1 short that you loved, and and
I was there with Chris Schumann and Vanessa, and they were mad because I was rooting for Mao over Ashley.
Oh, they would be very mad. But Chris may not like Ashley now. You never know which way the Schumanns are going to go. You don't know.
Okay, yeah. I knew Vanessa was going to go for the American, and I was like, "Oh, but Mao is really much better. You'll see. You'll see."
That was a fun. Yeah, okay, so that Skate America, we were still having like those Sarah McLachlan commercials on NBC, right?
Yeah.
Is that the one where Caroline Zhang just skated through the jumping passes?
Okay. Yeah, it was kind of looked like she was competing in like a 1958 Nationals or something, like with her technical content. It was tough, and then. It's so funny as a fan, you're like, what is happening? Like, clearly something's happening. And then when she talked to you, and I was like, she was just not even bringing in a coach. Like, what, are you too good for a coach? And then when she was talking to you, she was like, I was so humiliated. I didn't want any coach sitting next to me to be associated with what that performance was going to be like. And I was like, oh my gosh, devastating. Rodionova was there.
Oh, yes. She was like dancing? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She was giving you some real toddlers and tiaras magic.
Yes. Oh. Remember Dick called her a fugitive from the worst of the child pageants in his book?
which was amazing, by the way. And it's such like a moment in time because he was so current in his references. So I should go back and reread it now, actually, seeing how certain things played out and revisit it. But his section on Rodionova was amazing.
I remember my favorite quote in the book. It's when he discusses how Irina Slutskaya used to take the ice. And it was so true about how she would like be looking down at the ice and like circling around and
fixing the underpants, I mean, he's like, how is this taking the stage? Yeah.
Love. Okay, just...
Yeah, he got it right.
He did. But there are people that don't like appreciate Dick and Peggy. Like not everyone.
Well, we lived through it like kind of at our prime fandom.
We were raised on them. So that just felt like...
But I didn't like him in the time. It took me kind of maturing and going back to really appreciate it. Like I remember Skating Magazine had a poll, and like I used to fill them out, and like mail them back. Like I was super cool that way. And it was like, who's your favorite commentator and who's your least favorite commentator? And I remember Dick won for least favorite commentator, and he was like second for most favorite. So there was such a divide because
how dare those people? Did Scott Hamilton get favorite commentator?
Scott Hamilton won. Yeah.
You know what we think.
I was like people. Vern Lundquist. No.
I love Vern. You know why? Because
he stays out of it.
But he does like very cool things with his voice. He knows how to like whisper talk.
Yeah.
And give
you. They know. Like same with.
What town are you from?
Me?
Yeah.
Orland Park, Illinois.
From Orland Park, Illinois. Jonathan Byer. Scheherazade. Like, he knows how to do it.
and with the zingers at the end that they're going to play in like some reels. Was he Nancy Kerrigan has stolen the moment, made it her own, whatever he says.
Yes. She's stolen the moment.
I don't know that she stole it. Yeah, but it was amazing.
No, she seized the moment.
Seized the moment and made it her own. What a moment for Nancy Kerrigan.
Yes, see?
Yeah.
He's a pro.
They're iconic. Yeah.
And it's strange because I'm watching documentaries about other sports on ESPN, and sometimes you'll see shots of like Vern or Terry Gannon, and I get very excited, and they feel like they are ours, right? So I'm watching the Lance
We're loaning them to their real sports.
So I'm watching the Lance Armstrong documentary.
Now, was it Christine that was tweeting about it when she was like, I've never hated him more? Was the subtext? I'm loosely paraphrasing.
Oh gosh, I should call her to talk it out about that. Sometimes when I talk to her, it's about like high level things. We don't get to go into these. So I was watching it because it was recommended to us in the comments to watch. So I did. And plus, like, I've watched the other Lance films. This one, next level. I've watched it twice. You have to watch it. I want to watch it a third time.
It's on Netflix?
It's on ESPN. It's on Sunday night. It's in the Jordan Rules time slot at 9 p.m. Okay. What I appreciate is that it really, and I've seen him in another film that we watched at work that was about dishonesty. It was in our ethics training.
Well, wait, is this the one where, because they did a big, like, kind of documentary-ish thing about lying, where they talked about the woman that lied about the school zones.
So that one we watched at work. Okay. But there have been two other Lance ones. And it really goes more into, like, the kind of lying. And, I've been working on a video that I've kind of taken a pause on because of things that are going on, where there was a lot of evidence from the Chinese internet itself that their team members were underage in the 2008 Olympics, right? But they were not the first team to ever do this. And I wanted to show how this had a history of Romanians doing it and Russians doing it.
Yeah, this wasn't a Chinese thing.
It wasn't a Chinese thing. They just perfected it because of the strength to weight ratio and the rules of the time. They racked up a lot of points with strength to weight ratio being able to have their tiny little gymnasts do pirouettes on top of the bar and that were worth so much. And it's how they racked up points to win the team gold medal, which was within the rules, except for the fact that they were not old enough to compete. And that can go into whether you think age rules are, right or wrong. And there were members of the Team USA that talked about it on Instagram. And, this was back in the time, no one said anything about it. And they may not be well versed in like what kind of information was really out there. And the official articles by the New York Times were like much glibber than they could have been. Like there was like way more information about it that was available. And I've been like researching this video, and of course there's like a lot of tension, about racial things in general. It's like, maybe this is not the time to, look into this.
Again, hard because you weren't talking about one particular country having done this, but just a sport at large.
No.
But we know the internet.
Yeah. And they were calling girls racist and things like that. And it was like, okay, well, also, if the country has cheated for years, a reference point of what a 15-year-old or a 17-year-old looks like could also be very skewed if this has been a practice that they've done for 30 or 40 years.
Right.
But then you're like, why are they the only ones who've gotten in trouble? Which has more to necessarily maybe do with power. And maybe it was even like a trade-off, like one team got in trouble but another didn't. Because in gymnastics, we would hear from years later, like 20 years later, someone would be like, oh yeah, my age was faked by 2 years the whole time. And because it was outside, they developed like a statute of limitations for it. It was a whole big like cover up and like Adrian Stoica was in charge of the Federation of International Gymnastics. And of course the Romanians had done this, and of course they never got in trouble for it. So people have a whole lot of feelings because they have a reverence for these athletes who are cheating, but obviously it's not their fault. And I think that that's the same thing when we talk about doping, with different countries that have state-sponsored doping. And I think that, in those cases, I'm actually like very empathetic to the athletes.
100%, because especially in skating, we're talking about young people who have been designed to trust their system wholeheartedly. We're not talking about someone in their late 20s competing in tennis or something.
You have to think about like what your reference point is, right? So if you were raised that everyone takes these supplements, or that everyone, when they're 14, they compete, and like you may not even like know what the rules are, like you don't even think about it. If you are a gymnast who just trains every day, and when you're old enough to go to the Olympics, they tell you, you may not be studying the rules about like 16. I mean, you have to think about if you live in a bubble where the internet is not a thing, and you're not like reading all of the same rules and watching the same broadcasts where they harp on the age, you might have like a different reality of events, right? So, because we know the internet is can be very censored in China and things like that. So, and I don't blame the athletes for it, but it was not the time. Whereas Lance Armstrong,
it's a grown-ass man, who knows exactly what he's doing.
And he made a point in one of the films where he's so arrogant, but he said, in 40 years, people are going to understand that I really did win those Tour de France's, because it's about the rules and the unwritten rules. And the unwritten rules were that almost everyone in cycling was doping. And it's like, okay, that's a really arrogant and like difficult thing to...
Do you believe everyone in cycling was doping?
I believe that maybe it's like 50 or 60%. Maybe among the top men, it's closer to 100%.
Yeah. Because this was an argument that was also coming out during the Sochi labs and all of this sort of stuff. There was one defense argument that was saying, we're the only ones that get in trouble for it, but everyone indeed does it. But of course, I was like, well, if America does it, we can't even do that right, because we still haven't been doing well. But
so I believe that when it comes to like judges cheating in subjective sports, that all of the countries do it, but some countries are masterminds of it and more blatant about it than others, right? I believe that I think there are degrees, right? Like I think that that's like it's hard to prove, but I think that when you look at and skating scores, will be like, I have an algorithm to show.
Yeah, I bet he does.
But I think to a certain degree, and that goes even on like the national and the local level. I mean, there's always politics in any sport. But I think that with the cycling, of the high level people, I think that I've read a lot of articles about it where I do think that there's like a much higher prevalence, maybe even than in other sports, that it's like perhaps uniquely cycling, but not really. Because remember, they're also going to have a film on ESPN about Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. Do you remember that summer where they were all hitting those home runs? And then it was like, oh yeah, but they're all on human growth hormone.
There was a brilliant South Park episode, and I mean, no offense, we're going to put this in context where Eric Cartman pretends to be handicapped so he can compete in the Special Olympics, but he loses. He comes in last place. And then the moral of the story is if you cheat at professional sports and they're showing pictures of all those ball players while they give the speech at the end, they're like, it's like cheating and pretending that you are special needs and trying to compete in the Special Olympics. That's how low you are. And then there was a picture of McGuire and all those other people.
I mean, it's a good point.
It was an excellent point.
But then they go into, did we know if like the ball players back in the day were on cocaine or what were they? You know, it's like, I mean, it goes into so many things. But, and then someone was telling me, the guy that does Flow Skate was telling me that he's reading a book about the East Germans and the kind of drugs that, you know, their athletes were taking. And I mean, it's all fascinating. But I do think that there is, like, I think it's a huge area of ethics, and obviously everyone's always trying to get an edge.
Of course.
And
because again, for someone like Lance Armstrong, the numbers we are talking about in endorsements and money and all this sort of stuff to be gained from that kind of victory is massive. People have done far worse for less, you know.
I think that one interesting thing that they said about cycling was that the Tour de France goes, is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks, 21 days? Yeah. Not my dad's sport, not mine. But we would always follow it on vacation. And I know that Lance was good in the mountains. That's where he would pull ahead.
Okay.
But they were saying that the Tour de France is usually, this like 3-week race is usually determined by 2 hours. And they were saying like what a small percent that is. And they said that maybe the drugs they were taking give you a 10% boost, but 10% is a huge advantage within like a 2% variance. So that was a really interesting point, and that he wasn't as good when he didn't do the drugs. So yeah, it was. But then they finally asked like the difficult question that they never asked, because of course part of the reason why Lance was so popular and so dominant was because he had cancer and overcame it, and that just like fed into everyone, one being anti-cancer and two like overcoming all odds, and it made him into such a huge story, right?
And everyone had those bracelets. It was such a movement, like,
and it was like blinding. Like you could not how dare you say that Lance Armstrong is doping? Look at all of the millions that he has raised for cancer. And it was like almost like a perfect shield. Like how, because you look at those French, and the French were like, of course he's doping. And
whether he's helped a cancer cause or not, it doesn't have any bearing on whether or not he doped.
And you look at it and you're like, yeah, well, and they were talking about how obvious it was. And I was like, yeah, we were all pretty stupid. Like we wanted to.
Or naive,
it.
yeah. Because again, at the time, and we see this with skating all the time, this faux outrage, it's usually from people who aren't understanding the sport. I think if you're like a super fan of a sport and really know about it, it's probably so much more obvious to you than if we're just left with the narrative fed to us if we don't know.
I remember my dad, who's like he cycles, but he's not like, wasn't like, I mean, he would do like, and there are degrees of cycling crazy, right? So he would do like 100 miles, or he did like a thing from the Statue of Liberty to the World Trade Center, from the Pentagon to the World Trade Center a year after 9/11 and stuff like that. And he did like something in Lake Tahoe, but he did not want to believe that Lance was doping. But he did always say that Lance was a narcissist who was really hated, and one of his rivals hated him so much that he was going to be second to Lance and didn't want to share the podium with him because he detested him so much that he slowed down so that he would be fourth, so that he wouldn't have to be on the podium. And you think about all of the money and things that they hated him that much.
Yeah.
And then they went, because I always love to see these guys. The guys are interesting. His like teammates, they all have like a certain look to them. They're pretty attractive.
Okay. Yeah, I would think.
And one of his one of his former teammates has a wife who just hates him. And she is the star of every documentary about Lance because she has like the greatest stories about what a jerk he is.
Okay.
And you know Lance just hates her. And anytime she's in there, it's just like heaven. It's just like Betsy Andro, is her name? Betsy something.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure people will write it in the comments. She is a star. She is a star as the day is long, Jonathan. And they also said that his teammates, when they first moved to Italy, and they're all pretty young, that apparently Lance had like this huge mansion house, and all of his teammates were in like a 1-bedroom apartment sleeping on like couches. But of course they don't say like, oh yeah, Lance would have them just stay with his house. Like, of course he didn't. Like, Lance was raised to be a narcissist.
Yeah.
So this film shows you the mother. And you don't want to always blame the parents, but
you usually can.
You wonder, like, where does the narcissistic wound come from? Like, what? And apparently the mom had him at 16.
Okay.
She used to be like a Texan. Oh, and she's from Plano, which is where Nastia is from. And all those rich Woga gymnasts. So, like, love when these worlds come together. And she's talking about how she had him and she had all these abusive relationships. So you're wondering, like, does she feel guilty that the guys were mean to Lance? And did she just... And as she's talking, I'm starting to be like, does she have wine-stained teeth when she's doing a TV documentary, like on ESPN?
Got it.
But she looks like a Stepford wife, but she's got a red wine-soaked teeth the whole film.
Okay.
And she forged his birth certificate as a kid so that he could enter these triathlons.
So the bending of the rules were immediate. Yeah.
Yes. So, like, this is someone whose own parents supported things and let things go early on.
Anything to win. Yeah.
You're like, okay, this is someone who just, like, the rules didn't apply to early on. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's not likable at all.
Okay.
At all.
Yeah, I don't think he ever was, because wasn't there a Sheryl Crow mishap?
Didn't he dump Sheryl Crow when she got cancer?
Well, that's what I was thinking, and then it was so strange, this narrative about it, but that was sort of how we were left thinking, whether that was the truth or not. It was just like, Sheryl got cancer, he dumped her.
I know, it was like
how it was played in the media.
I mean, he's a real jerk. There's just...
Yeah, it seems that, if that's the case, that certainly seems that.
In each time, I feel like he becomes a little bit more honest with each interview that he does.
When it's clear there's no coming back, maybe. Yeah.
He's also such a narcissist that we're giving him attention to tell us. So he doesn't seem shamed into revealing more information. It's more... I don't know. It's like each time we tell him, we're still giving him like a 4-hour national film, which he thinks is going to show his greatness at the end of the day.
Right.
And they were talking about how he is going to inadvertently shape this film. And you think about how Michael Jordan shaped the last film. And you're like, well, he probably is like shaping this no matter what when we see it. So anyway, I recommend it. He's not likable, and it's a fascinating like personality study. But Terry Gannon is in it, and he was looking very handsome. I mean, this is peak Terry Gannon, like 1999 Terry, like wind in the hair, like
he looked good, because he normally did like college basketball. I thought was his main go-to sport.
I know. Think about it. This is Terry, like on summer vacation in France. Like he was looking good. Okay. So, I don't know.
And he's had to wrangle old people, young people, all in the skating booth. He's had to, like, keep the kids in check, keep, like, the loudmouth, like, sassy older man in check. He does it all. Bless his heart.
Bless his heart. Are you watching Dead to Me?
No, but I keep hearing about it.
I think you'll like it. You'll like it.
I watched on Hulu the Catherine the Great one. I think it's just called The Great. I'm a huge Catherine the Great fan. Like, so I read all the books.
Do you watch that show, Katerina, on Amazon that Aaron is always telling me to watch?
Which one?
It's like on Amazon Prime. I think it's called the Katerina. It has a new season, came out.
Oh. No, I'd have to check.
It's about a Russian named Catherine, okay? There's like...
Okay. Well, really, she's German, but okay. This Catherine's German, but it's okay. It's fluff and absurd and raunchy at times, but anything of that era is interesting to me.
Oh, I will have to watch.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's not amazing.
It's on my list of things to get through.
Okay.
So,
got it.
but these
Got it.
ESPN films are like,
Well, and I still want to see Katja Comte, or Kati Comte, but the Katarina Witt documentary. But you realize, like, as it translates, it's like a quasi obscene title. Like it does mean like Katarina's coming. Like and it is clearly like it's not how you would word it in proper German. Like there's definitely a wink to how it's worded.
speaking of German films that you'll want to see,
Oh, where's this going?
there's an 80s German film with Denise Bielmann.
I
Where-
wanted to ask you what she was like when you were hanging out with her. Okay.
Very nice. Very nice.
Okay.
Little bit of difficulty with like the language, so like didn't
Surprising.
didn't get
Swiss
like
should
the
speak
full
300.
essence of
Okay.
Denise. Like it
Okay.
was not an aerobics class, and let's we all would like. But she was in some film in German in like the 1980s.
Like just a full blown drama or something.
She
Not
said it was like a
something
comedy
sketchy.
film with like famous German actors. And like she is in it doing like gymnastics and different things. And the guys in the film are somehow like dressing in drag. Like maybe it's inappropriate. Like German men doing drags just sounds like so maybe not okay for 2020.
Yeah.
But like, can we excuse it being 40 years ago? Like, is that okay? Like, can we?
Well, I'm gonna watch it and find out. That's
Is
for
Tootsie
damn
okay
sure.
anymore? Is Tootsie still okay? I'm not sure.
Well, didn't it just become a musical again on
It
Broadway?
is. It must be like decent, right? I mean, he's Jewish. It's like, you know, I don't know. Like,
It should be kind of funny. I don't know.
like is that like I don't know. Anyway, the German film, like it involves like crazy German driving. Like I think it's a good family film. You know, it's
Yeah, I'm
probably
gonna
like
check it out.
borderline offensive, maybe to I don't know, right? Like it's,
Okay,
yeah.
we'll investigate.
It's
We'll
absurdist
investigate.
German humor, you know.
Okay.
I don't. Sounds dangerous.
Yeah.
I want you to translate the whole thing for me. Maybe we can watch
Okay.
Aliona. You know, maybe she could explain
That's right.
what is happening.
Maybe it's come out with subtitles now for us.
Why isn't Aliona in a German film? I mean, come on. Like that.
Maybe she will be. Maybe she will be.
work
It was
on it.
interesting because I didn't know, like, in the Jutta Muller documentary that we watched, like she considered Aliona a gold medal for Germany.
Yes.
It was interesting. They didn't have the nationalism of that she wasn't really from Germany, but the fact that she was representing Germany was enough for her.
Well, at this point, she's like lived there for half her life. So you think like,
Yeah,
what does it all mean?
and competed over
You
the
know?
yeah,
Like-
exactly.
Oh. So anyway, there was a Twitter incident this week, Jonathan, and
Yeah, there was. It's a touchy subject. It's a very touchy subject, and it's given the current climate of everything that's happening in the world right now. I find myself just avoiding posting anything because even if I like posting the vases and crap like that, but like, it's a tough time to post, and it's a tough time when certain people that maybe there's a pressure for these people like skaters, which fall in this weird category of quasi celebrity, I would say, where they do have a following, but it's not such a huge platform, and for them to just be weighing in on issues that perhaps we don't need their insight on.
yeah,
It's tricky. It's tricky.
especially the ones that I think one of the best things about like truly intelligent people know what they know, and they know what they don't know.
And know when to back away.
Many skaters live in a bubble, but they don't really fully understand what they do and they know and they don't know. And then you also have to think of like, if your family is like from different bends on the political spectrum, like what kinds of things you may be seeing and absorbing that you're fully not
Right.
understanding. So when Zach Donahue tweeted "All Lives Matter," like on the surface, you would look at that and be like, well, of course, all lives matter, every people matter. That's great. But it's used in a way that is
And in
terrible.
my opinion, most of us know that it's no one's saying not all life matters by not saying all lives matter. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like, you know, it's a I don't want to say a catchphrase. It's a very specific wording that some
does?
people are weaponizing. Yeah.
I think I used to describe him as being that Zach just comes across to me as the kind of guy that goes into your fridge and drinks the milk out of the carton and puts it back.
And sits on your countertop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's just who he is.
And I think it's hard to say what anyone's intention is, but I don't believe the intention was malicious, but
No.
it was a big misstep. But I have to say, now, have you read his retraction?
It was the most skater response
Yeah.
I've ever read.
Yes
It meant,
and
again,
no.
meant well.
Yes, yeah, it diverged from a typical skater response in one way that I appreciated, which is he admitted he was self-absorbed in a skating bubble. And I thought that's where he did deviate and talk about, I am so in my own world,
Which I
it's
respect.
hard for me to know. I was like, that's one of the only times I've ever heard someone maybe acknowledge that.
But it was also cringy. Like, I
mean,
appreciated
yeah.
that it went on for 4 pages or 4 screens.
Yeah.
I think by the end, he was Martin Luther King.
Or, yeah, he felt like he was really doing good for the world.
He referenced his black friends, and I was like, why do I feel like that's Vanessa James? And then also it was, he just like didn't focus on the thing. He went into sexual slavery, which made me think that he had Netflix open and like saw the Epstein. It was just like so word vomity that it was a lot to take in. It was,
Yeah.
but I think the intention was good, but I think Marie France should have edited it.
Well, and I mean, depending on how much they're on it, because I think they do have new PR people working for.
It's Romaine's husband.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
You know,
They're
I
like
think
coaches and management now. Like, I don't fully get the full thing, but they're kind of like a
but they do have, unfortunately, because of their amount of followers and things like that, they do have a voice in that you gotta think twice before hitting that enter button.
It was a rough one. It was a rough
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. And then subsequently.
And I also feel for him because
we know the Twitter army is an aggressive one. And I'm sure I didn't
and
see
we
the
know
fallout.
these skaters, while they may be geniuses on the ice, may not be as aware of the news as other people. And it's not an excuse, but it's also a reality. Because I know myself when a couple years ago, when the Black Lives Matter protesters were going on, you first saw All Lives Matter, but not understanding like what that meant in terms of how people were using it, and then you're like, oh, right? And
Right.
I just kept being like, oh my god, it's just like, it's like when the people wanted to have the straight pride parades because they felt left out. You're like,
Right.
It's that same
Right.
kind of.
Yeah, it's tone deaf. It's tone deaf.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and it's just like, and it's just been like a week that just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. So yeah.
And then conversely, for all of a sudden there to be a coming out moment for Guillaume, this is something I was also, we've talked a little bit about athletes coming out, not coming out, whatever on the air, but
I
Liam
thought he was out. I really thought that he had been out.
Well, it's definitely not that he was in, because Liam commented, the bartender, he was like, I took a picture and posted it of us at a gay bar. Like,
Okay.
Was he not out then? Like, it's very confusing.
He was
because
never in, but he publicly
Yeah.
acknowledged and showed his boyfriend, which is great. I thought that he had made. Okay, this is like a difficult. I thought that he was already out. I really did. I was like.
I thought so too.
Because I thought that he had always posted a lot of like respecting everyone, rainbow flag type things in the past.
And
also when all the skaters went to Gay Pride in Montreal, I thought, like, did he post it? I mean, there were pictures of them all there, like Eric Radford, but then Dylan was there, but he's just like friends with all of them. So, who knows? So,
yeah, it's an interesting thing because in 2020, does one quote unquote come out, or is it as you are when you are? Like, for instance, I've had some interviews when they're like, now, are you out? And I was like, well, what? I've not made like an announcement saying I'm gay, but like I've talked about partners, or I've talked about like, it seems the same thing with Eric. The fact that there was like a formal announcement seems so something. And then some people will say, like I was reading some comments when they're like, why can't he just skate or something? But again, in such a homophobic
you see why
sport in a weird way, which blows everyone's mind outside of skating when I tell them how homophobic skating actually is. Everyone's completely baffled.
Do you know who some of the most homophobic people in skating are?
The gay people themselves.
The older gay people who run the sport are the ones.
I find that in opera very much, and I don't know if it stems from.
There's a crossover, like between.
If there's a resentment about the ability to be free about it now, and they felt they always had to be so tight-lipped about it. Like I've had people say things to me like, "Keep your sexuality off the stage," and I was like, "I don't recall having gay sex on the stage. What are you talking about? Do you know what I mean? You want me to pretend I have a girlfriend or do a Mark Mitchell girlfriend fluff piece? Like, what are you talking about? Like, insane.
They write it all over. If we share anything, they will write it all on it. So
yeah, it's fascinating. But I mean, I guess in a way, if that formalizes it as a celebrity, I don't know. Maybe you are supposed to do that. I don't know how that works because again, I just know people who are gay. Did you have like a party coming out? I mean, there's a moment when yes, you tell your family or something when you're young.
I mean, I don't think Guillaume didn't have a party. I think he just, was honoring
formally.
It. And,
yeah.
And good for him. But that's a weird thing too. Like, I'm not a famous person that would ever have to navigate
clarify that. Yeah, totally.
I'm not that at all. And it's one of those things. I think about how many skaters we knew were gay, but like maybe their mom didn't want them to say it, or they couldn't say it. Like, what a weird head thing that is when like people know that you're gay, but then you're not talking about it.
When it comes time to just fall in love and date and be in a healthy
You're talking about drapes in Sochi and you're getting these like weird questions, and know that the USFS was like historically maybe not institutionally homophobic, but maybe judges were homophobic, and like you don't know which way to go because there was a whole group of men who were straight in U.S. figure skating who were not gay, and they were referred to as like the Harvard boys, and they were considered like very homophobic, and they influenced. They're why all the U.S. men would be doing like military programs, and why there was a certain way, and this was a very real thing when we watch like the Mark Mitchells compete and from that era. So the Brian Boitano.
Well, I remember Skate Canada got in huge trouble when they were doing sort of like a butch yourself up program for the male skaters, and I can't remember what it was called. It was at some point in the 80s. I should do more research before I'm just splattering this about. But it was something like be a man or something heinous.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think that someone like Guillaume coming out and just saying, I'm going to be world champion again, most likely, and I'm out.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Great.
And I hope that young skaters are like, oh, yeah.
And hopefully he can still have all of the endorsements, and that would be huge.
Yeah.
And I think
potentially even more. We always said that about Eric. Maybe if he had made that his narrative a bit sooner, he could have even ridden more of a media wave.
Yeah. I forget what year he came out. I'm like forgetting when the narrative
for the Olympics. So was it for Pyeongchang?
Wasn't it? Didn't he come out after Sochi, before Pyeongchang? Right? I can't remember.
It was unusual timing. We definitely knew it wasn't for Sochi. We knew they did not want to make that the narrative going into Sochi.
I think it was right after, which was still when he was winning his world titles, and good for him. And then, I mean, it's so strange to like watch Johnny Weir's show. That was the biggest head scratcher because he didn't say that, but then he did that in a different way that I always thought was almost exploitative, where he was like playing a game with the military, with the media, where he would be trying to.
I was like, what?
Where he'd be trying to make like gay references and speak in certain ways that suggest things without saying, and it was like a back and forth which only made him like, I would say, more notorious or infamous than famous for the right reasons.
Or perplexing, just more of an enigma, which was part of his thing. I think he liked that enigmatic kind of effect.
That had nothing to do with the skating and everything to do.
Right.
That's why it's always so funny when people are like, oh, you know, that gay skater, Johnny Weir, and you're like, the gay won? Like, what?
Yeah, like, what are you talking about? But I find actually most people would assume quite the opposite. They'd be like, which one was the straight one?
Which can be
and you're like,
true.
Scott Hamilton? Yeah. We got to go back.
So anyway, it's a very interesting group, but I think this week showed why Guillaume and Eric and Adam like need to make those pronouncements, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, you know, so it's been hard, and hopefully, you know, I was watching, you know, the protest last night, and I was like, you know, that's where Dawn lives. Like, that's the new school. That's like, you know, it's, you know, scary.
Totally.
And when it feels like we have like no leader doing any like healing overtures or taking it seriously in a productive way of like acknowledging,
or in a humanitarian way.
Like it's like people get very upset about the protest, but it's like you have to like acknowledge where the emotion is coming from and make people feel heard, and it's there's a lack of that in our country right now. So I think it's challenging because you're like, I don't think the protests are going to stop, you know.
I mean, you feel like the city vibrating right now. I do anyway.
Is it up by you? Are there protests, or is it just down in Union Square? And
so I'm just for reference, I'm just above Central Park, and I felt it in Central Park for sure. Now, I didn't see any formally organized thing, but there were small groups, you know, with signs making pronouncements. I felt very safe, but you can tell people are vibrating with something.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, it's tough because there's such emotion that stems from something so horrible that you feel like needs to be acknowledged. You know, like, and like, yes, there are people that are then exploiting the protests, as there always are, that are then damaging property, and like, that's not right, you know. But the emotion that it stems from, you have to like go back.
It's very real.
It's very real, and you have to acknowledge that. And it's so hard to have like these nuanced conversations with people that it's like,
it's so emotionally charged, and clearly everyone in a lot of walks of life right now are just triggered.
Yes.
And so it just makes everything so difficult to navigate. So sometimes when it becomes too much, I curl up on my couch and I'm like, let's revisit the 1987 World Championships and just disappear to Cincinnati for a little bit.
As we'll be doing tomorrow night. So I'm excited.
It becomes a refuge. You know, music for me is a refuge. But the skating can also be a really beautiful temporary escape from the intensity of what's happening around me.
It's scary. So anyway, we are going to be revisiting 1987. I'm very excited for it.
It was a different time. Yeah.
So similar, so far away.
Yes, and yet,
we have
good competition. Those skaters that were at that event, I mean, this is an event.
So I'm
top to bottom.
I'm looking forward to it. So, well, hopefully everyone is safe and doing well and not having corona. And also, if you're going to like, John, do you see people on your timeline that are posting photos in like groups with like no masks or social distancing that are just like very
at first when people were doing it, they were so quick to like justify. They were like, this is an old picture, or like, we were all distanced for the rest of the thing. But it's tricky because again, in the city, I have noticed people still very much following the rules about distance and masks. But I have seen on internet, but on the interwebs, a lot of people posting these group things, and then they'll take them down.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's also, you know, social media justice police are like, you know, going after everybody.
Because I'm starting to see people, and why do they always have alcohol in their hand when they're doing it? And they just look so tone deaf.
Again, tone deaf. Yeah. And it's a privilege kind of thing. Yeah.
And it's like, meanwhile, you're posting photos of yourself like having drinks as like protests are going on everywhere in the country, and it's like things are literally being burned down, and you're like,
Yeah.
for drinks, like,
Yeah.
save that. Save it.
Yeah, save it because we need an escape. And so show us your beautiful post, show us your selfie, show us whatever. But like maybe just not this second.
Yeah.
It's not the right timing. Yeah.
Timing, like on my axle that I have to get tomorrow. So
Just saying. Yeah, exactly. I'm above the elbow. Yeah. You know I'm going to be doing this like, wait, I have to like get it slow. And I still grab my cheek. I guess I want my face.
I was doing it all wrong yesterday, the first time. So, but now.
Well, I'd be a mess at the Benoit choreography then. I'd be like.
How would you do it? I'm sure he'd be like. Well, he does all those angles. I don't know how he hits them. But...
Yeah, so maybe you wouldn't go from one to the other. You'd
and
go
he's
here
often in
and then
black
you'd go
and white,
out.
even in his photography. Like he's a very interesting man. So
he knows what he likes.
He does.
Here, here.
Hold an edge or look sexy, everyone. Bye.